Good morning, church. It is good to be with you this morning. We're going to finish up the prologue of John together today, starting in verse 10. It says, "He was in the world, and the world was created through him, and yet the world did not recognize him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, he gave them the right to be children of God, to those who believed in his name, who were born not of natural descent, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We observed his glory, the glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified concerning him and exclaimed, 'This was the one of whom I said, the one coming after me ranks ahead of me, because he existed before me.' Indeed, we have all received grace upon grace from his fullness, for the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the one and only Son, who is himself God and is at the Father's side. He has revealed him." So these first few verses, 4 verses, 10 through 13, they remind us of this concept of being born again. There's a couple touch points in here with later chapters in this gospel. This one points us forward to Nicodemus. You remember when Jesus says you have to be born again into the kingdom, and Nicodemus just is struggling with that. He's trying to figure out, what does this mean? What is it? Can I go back into my mother's womb? He's so confused. It reminds us that there's a couple realities here. Number one, the truths of God are really difficult to get. They require supernatural intervention to understand. You cannot explain these concepts to the natural mind that has not been born again through the Spirit. So what do we do? How do we start? What did Jesus do? He didn't flinch back, but he was patient. So we're going to pray for people. We're going to explain the truths in a way that people can understand. Jesus used a lot of parables so that the people who were called, who were being drawn in, could have an opportunity to grasp these truths in a way that would make sense later. Even though he does say, I use these parables so that you don't understand what I'm saying. But even when he speaks plainly in the Gospel of John, people still don't understand what he's saying. And so that leads us to the conclusion that it's just challenging to get down to the bottom of this. And then again, we talk about this being born again. The other reality here is that there is no work involved in that. I mean, if we really look at this, it's a dying to who I was and living again through Christ in the power of Christ and what he did on the cross. How do we accomplish that? Through anything that we do. Feeding the hungry is not going to do it. Caring for the widow and the orphan isn't going to draw me into a born-again relationship with God. Those things are the fruit of my salvation, where I have laid down my life, submitted to Christ, shown it in baptism, dead, and brought back to life. And then this word that came and dwelt among us. Moses, this is great. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Another touch point here, when Jesus was visiting or on trial with Pilate, Jesus says his purpose was to come and to testify to the truth. He says, this is what I came to do, to reveal the truth. And Pilate says, what is truth? He was rejected. Just like it says up at the top here. The world did not recognize him. His people did not receive him. And then the final touch point we have, no one has seen God, the one and only Son, who is himself God and is at the Father's side. He is revealed to him. Right at the end, their final discourse, Thomas says, show us the Father and we'll be satisfied. Jesus says, Thomas, haven't I been with you long enough for you to know that if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, that we're one? No one has ever seen God, but here we have the very words. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. When we read Scripture, when we get it into us, we see God as we look to Him over and over again. Again, don't grow weary in pursuing God and to trying to understand more and more about who He is. Well, I love you, church, and I look forward to talking to you soon again.